My brother's girlfriend smirked, "Don't think about crashing here at their housewarming party," and my dad told me to let it slide. So I said, "Actually, you will be asking to crash at my place." I'm 34, grew up in Northern Virginia, now living in DC, and if you ask my family, I'm the quiet one. The dependable one, the one who'll answer a 3 a.m. call, loan you money without a second thought, and help move your couch 3 times because you didn't like the first apartment's lighting. I never minded being that guy, the background player in everyone else's story. But there's a funny thing about always being underestimated. Eventually, people forget to watch their mouths around you. My younger brother Connor just bought a condo with the help of our parents. And when I say help, I mean they basically handed him a down payment on a silver platter after he got a job that lasted, I kid you not, 3 months. My mom called it an investment in his future. Funny. When I started my business out of a basement, they called it a risky phase. That risky phase now has 12 employees, government contracts, and 3 letters after its name. But I never bring that up. It's just not who I am. Anyway, Connor's housewarming party was last Saturday. It was one of those awkward, obligatory family things where everyone brings wine, pretends to like the hummus, and comments on the crown molding. I showed up a little late, not intentionally, traffic just sucked. And the moment I walked in, Connor's new girlfriend Avery gave me a once-over like she was scanning a barcode on clearance clothing. She was all smiles and fake cheek kisses, but you could see it in her eyes, the judgment. The kind that's sugar-coated in every word, but sharp enough to cut you clean if you're not careful. "Oh, you made it," she said, tone syrupy sweet. "We were starting to wonder if you were crashing here now that Connor's got a place." She laughed, not like it was a joke, but like it was an inside joke she assumed everyone else was already in on. Connor chuckled. My mom did her signature tight-lipped smirk. My dad, always the diplomat, gave a nervous laugh and muttered, "Let it go, Avery. You're making this awkward." She didn't let it go. That was just her warm-up. The thing about Avery is that she's that brand of snobby that comes from trying too hard to appear effortless. She kept touching her hair, name-dropping places in New York she used to go when she was in the city, and constantly circling back to how humble beginnings are so important. It was the kind of talk that only sounds kind on the surface. Underneath it, she was digging. "I just think it's so inspiring that Connor's working his way up and that you guys are so close. Some people get weird when their siblings do better than them. You know," she said later over brie and crackers. "But not you, Miles. You're just so chill about everything." I nodded, smiled, and changed the subject. I always change the subject. It's a habit now, like muscle memory. But she wasn't done. At one point, while we were all gathered around the kitchen island, Avery leaned in and said, "So what do you do again?" "Something in IT, right?" She said it like I worked behind a register fixing iPhones. I was about to answer when Connor cut in with, "Miles has some tech company thing. He's been doing it forever." "Right," Avery said, waving a hand. "Startups are so cool. I did a couple projects for a startup through our firm, you know, Cornerstone Solutions. We manage a bunch of contracts for local businesses. It's wild how many of them just don't know what they're doing." I blinked. "Cornerstone?" I asked, careful not to sound too interested. She smiled like she'd just been complimented. "Yeah, I'm an account strategist. I basically handle the brand partnerships. A lot of small fish, no offense, but it pays." I felt my jaw tick just slightly. It wasn't what she said, it was the smugness underneath the subtle jab, the assumption that I was by default the small fish. It was the first time I realized she didn't just think I was beneath her. She had no clue I was the ocean she was swimming in. "See? One of the contracts my company holds is with a mid-size marketing agency. We handle their data infrastructure, their back-end automation, and as of 6 months ago, we were tapped to renew a 3-year extension through a government tech subsidy pilot. That agency, Cornerstone Solutions, we manage 90% of their operating platforms. My signature's on every compliance report they submit. But I said nothing. Not yet. I watched her brag to my aunt about how exhausting it was to deal with clients who couldn't afford proper CRM systems. I watched my dad nod and smile and sip his beer like it was just easier to let her monologue run its course than interrupt. And I watched Connor puff up his chest every time she tossed him a compliment, as if her arrogance somehow validated his worth. It wasn't just that they were rude, it was that they didn't even realize it. Like I was invisible. Like I didn't matter. And maybe that's what stung most. Not the insult, not even the lies. But the way my own family looked past me, the way my dad especially just let her keep going. He'd always said he wanted peace, but sometimes peace just means letting someone else get bruised so no one else has to raise their voice. I stood there holding my drink, letting it all wash over me. I wasn't angry, not yet. But there was a flicker, the quiet spark that comes before the fire. And as Avery pulled out her phone to show someone her LinkedIn profile bragging about a campaign I knew we'd actually rescued from collapse, I quietly reached for mine. I hadn't planned on checking it, but something told me I should. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was instinct. I opened the internal contract dashboard from my company portal typed in Cornerstone and scrolled down to the subcontracting employees under the analytics wing. Her name popped up halfway down the list. Avery Collins, account strategist, non-renewal pending, reviewed by Miles J. Taylor, me. I stared at it for a moment, not saying a word, and then I smiled. Not smug, not malicious, just calm. Because in that moment I realized something. She had no idea who I was, and neither did the rest of them. I put the phone away, looked up, and watched as Avery laughed at her own joke again. Something about how some people are just built for roommates. My dad gave a low chuckle and shook his head, and that was the moment I knew I wasn't going to stay silent much longer. I didn't say anything that night. I just left the party a little early, offered a polite goodbye, and slipped out while everyone was still laughing at one of Connor's exaggerated stories. On the drive home, I didn't turn on music. I just sat with the silence. I wasn't even angry, not really. It was more like tired. Tired in that way where your body isn't sore, but something in your chest feels heavy, like someone's been quietly stacking bricks there for years. It wasn't just Avery. She was a symptom. The bigger thing, the real thing, was my family. For years, they treated me like background noise, like wallpaper useful when they needed something invisible when they didn't. When Connor failed out of college, who helped pay off his private loans under the table to protect his credit, me. When Mom's car broke down and Dad was out of town, who drove 4 hours with a borrowed trailer and got it towed for free, me. When our Aunt Denise was in the hospital and nobody else could get off work, who sat with her 3 nights in a row and brought her crosswords and ginger tea, you get the picture. And not once did they say thank you. Not once did they ask if I needed anything. I think in their eyes, I was already the responsible one, the one who had it all figured out. So why bother? But what they didn't realize, or maybe didn't want to realize, was that the reason I was doing okay was because I'd had to figure it out. Alone. No safety net. No bailout. While Connor coasted on every excuse in the book, I was building a business out of my garage, eating canned soup, and learning code at 2 a.m. because I couldn't afford to hire help. The Monday after the party, I got an email from HR at Cornerstone requesting a formal performance review signature for Avery's contract. It had been flagged for review because she'd missed 2 campaign deadlines and there were client-side complaints about communication delays. The irony was so rich, I almost laughed. I didn't sign it right away. I bookmarked it, sat with it. Then Tuesday, I got a text from my mom. Connor's got a big interview Friday. Can you help him prep? He said you're good at that kind of thing. Maybe help him tweak his resume. Proud of you too. I stared at it. No. Hello. No, how are you? Just a request wrapped in a compliment, like a spoonful of sugar to make the guilt go down easier. I didn't respond. Wednesday night, Connor called me. I picked up. Yo, Miles, you busy? Not really. So, I've got this Zoom interview coming up. It's for this SaaS sales thing, and I think it'd be dope if you could help me sound like, I don't know, more legit. I raised an eyebrow. You want me to lie for you? Not lie, just, fluff it up. I mean, you know how this stuff works. You talk circles around these tech people all the time. I paused. Connor, do you even want the job? Dude, come on. It's good money. Dad said if I lock this down, they'll help with the Tesla. I almost dropped my phone. Wait, they're buying you a Tesla? No, not buying, just helping with the down payment. Like an early birthday thing. I went silent. Hello, he asked. Yeah, I said I'm here. Cool. So can you hop on Zoom with me tomorrow? Just run through some fake client objections and show me how to close. I said yes, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see just how far this would go. Thursday came and went. We did the Zoom. I gave him tips, watched him write them down like a kid copying homework. He kept asking things like, how do I make it sound like I understand KP is, and should I say I'm good with CRMs, even if I don't know what that means? That night, I got another text from my mom. So proud of Connor lately. He's really finding his stride. Reminds me of your Uncle Pete when he was young. Real go-getter. You boys are finally both doing great. Family's proud. I didn't reply. Friday, I logged into the client portal and checked the status of the Cornerstone contract. Avery's file had a note from their project manager. Apparently, she'd mishandled a cross-channel campaign, and the agency had to comp the client with a $5,000 credit to keep them happy. She hadn't mentioned that at the party. I still didn't touch the file. Not yet. The final straw came Saturday. I stopped by my parents' place for lunch. They'd invited me, and after dodging texts all week, I figured I'd face it head-on. The second I walked in, I could smell something baking. Probably that dry lemon cake Mom made when she wanted to show off. Connor was already there, lounging on the couch, sipping from a bottle of kombucha like it was champagne. Avery was there, too. I froze for a second in the hallway. She looked up and grinned. "Look who finally showed up," she said. "Guess you can afford gas money." My dad chuckled from the kitchen. "Avery, come on." She leaned in like it was a secret. "I'm kidding. You know I'm joking, right, Miles? I'm not trying to start a class war or anything." I said nothing, just smiled, sat down across from her. She launched into another story about some influencer client she was hand-holding through a rebrand, clearly performing for the room. Connor nodded along like a proud boyfriend. My mom placed a plate of that dry cake in front of me like it was peace offering. And then it happened. Avery reached into her bag, pulled out her laptop, and said, "Actually, Miles, this is hilarious. But I think one of your campaigns came across my desk this week. Some tiny firm called MJT Systems." Connor laughed. "Yo, that's you, right?" I stared at her. "That's mine, yeah." She blinked. "Wait, seriously, you work there, I own it." She froze for a beat. "Oh. Huh. I guess I didn't connect the dots." "Don't worry," I said casually. "Most people don't." Connor leaned forward. "Wait, but like you don't own it?" "Yeah. Started it 10 years ago." Avery tried to recover. "That's cool. So you're like, what, CEO? Something like that." Mom clapped her hands, beaming. "See, that's why I said we're proud of both our boys. Everyone's doing great." Avery narrowed her eyes. "Well, small world. We've actually been reviewing some of your systems. There's been some redundancy on the back end, just so you know." I raised an eyebrow. "Redundancy?" "Yeah," she said, flipping her laptop open. "Your cloud stack. It's not optimized for cross-platform CRM integration. Just saying. We flagged it." Connor let out a low whistle. "Dom, you going to let her come for your company like that?" I smiled. And then I reached into my own bag, pulled out my phone, and tapped the dashboard app. Turned the screen toward Avery. Her name, her department, her pending termination notice. She stared at it like it was a ghost. I didn't say a word. And that silence, that awful ringing silence, was the moment everything changed. The look on Avery's face said everything. Her lips parted slightly. The smug confidence drained from her expression like someone had pulled the plug. She stared at the phone in my hand for a beat too long. And then, in true performative fashion, gave a sharp, awkward laugh, as if she was the one in on the joke. "That's hilarious," she said. "Where do you even get that?" I didn't answer because I didn't need to. Connor leaned over the screen. "Wait, hold up. Is that real? Like, really real?" "Still," I said nothing. I just sat back in the chair and took a slow sip of the room-temperature lemon water my mom had given me. "Let it burn a little on the way down." Avery quickly shut her laptop and tucked it into her bag, suddenly very interested in checking something on her phone. My dad, meanwhile, cleared his throat like he was about to say something, then chose not to. And my mom, ever the peacemaker, nervously started talking about the casserole she planned to make next weekend, like that would erase the tension humming in the air. I finished my slice of dry cake and left not long after, saying I had work to do, which was true, but not in the way they assumed. The ride home felt different this time, not quiet clean, like I'd finally taken a deep breath after years of shallow ones. But beneath that, there was something else too, a hollowness I hadn't expected, like I'd finally hit back after years of swallowing my pride. But the satisfaction didn't sit the way I thought it would. That night, I lay awake longer than usual. I kept replaying the look on my dad's face. Not surprised, not defensive, just disappointed. Not in her, but in me. And that's what cracked something open in me. Because somewhere deep down, some part of me was still that kid looking for approval, still waiting for the nod, the pat on the back, the "we see you." And instead, all I'd ever gotten was the same old silence. Or worse, thinly veiled disappointment masked as neutrality. In their eyes, I'd embarrassed Avery, made things uncomfortable, rocked the boat. But what about me? What about all the times I sat there and let the boat rock me? I thought about calling my dad, explaining myself, but I didn't. I knew how that conversation would go. "You could have handled that better, Miles. It's not worth making drama over. You know how she is. Just let it go. Let it go. Always, always that." The next morning, I opened up my company dashboard again, stared at Avery's file, and after a few long minutes, clicked Defer Review. Not because she deserved it, she didn't, but because I didn't want to be the villain in a story they'd already written me into. I didn't need to burn her. Not yet. I just needed space. But space was hard to come by. The fallout came fast. That Monday, I got a call from my mom. No greeting, just a tight voice. I just talked to Connor. He said you embarrassed Avery. I stayed quiet. Was that necessary? Honestly, Miles, I know you two didn't get off on the right foot, but this isn't like you. I asked, what is like me? Silence. Then, you know what I mean. No, I didn't. Not anymore. She's very upset. Connor's upset. We just want peace. Peace. There it was again, that cursed word. I've been peaceful my whole life, I said. Where did that get me? She didn't answer. Just sighed, then told me she hoped I'd apologize soon so this didn't turn into a thing. I hung up after that. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I just put the phone down and stared at the wall of my home office. Suddenly it felt colder than it ever had. That week, I buried myself in work. We had 2 major projects nearing deadline, 1 grant pitch to finalize, and a staffing restructure I'd been putting off for months. I should have felt productive, but I didn't. I felt numb. Every message from my mom was clipped. Every call from Connor went unanswered. I skipped a Sunday dinner for the first time in years and didn't even text to say why. And not once did any of them reach out just to ask how I was doing. It was all about Avery, her feelings, her embarrassment, her misunderstood sense of humor. Meanwhile, I was sinking. I didn't realize how badly I needed my family to just see me until it became clear they never really had. And now that the illusion had shattered, I didn't know what to do with the pieces. One night, about a week after the party, I got a text from an old friend, Kayla. We hadn't spoken in months. She used to work with me back when I had 2 employees, and we worked out of a converted basement in Alexandria. Hey, stranger. Heard through the grapevine you're still saving the tech world one over-engineered platform at a time. Coffee sometime, I hesitated, then typed back, only if you're paying. We met up 2 days later. She looked exactly the same. Denim jacket, sarcastic smile, eyes that missed nothing. We caught up over burnt espresso and stale croissants in a half-empty cafe. At some point, she leaned forward and said, "So what's up with you lately? You look like someone who just realized their dog has been secretly judging them." I laughed, actually laughed, and told her everything. Not the polished version, not the business owner filter, just me. The ignored older brother, the disappointment, the "you're doing fine, so shut up" guy. She listened, didn't interrupt, just nodded every now and then. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "Okay, so you've got a crappy family and a therapist dream of a brother. Join the club. You want a sticker?" I blinked. "Excuse me." "You heard me. Look, I'm not saying they're not jerks. They are. But you've spent so long being useful that you don't even know what it feels like to just be. You're allowed to be angry, Miles. You're allowed to stop caring, everybody." I didn't know what to say. "You need a reset," she said, standing. "Let me show you something." She took me to this tiny co-working loft she'd been renting out on weekends. All exposed brick whiteboards and secondhand furniture. It was empty, quiet, and oddly comforting. "You ever thought about building something that isn't just for someone else?" she asked. "Something that's just yours? Not for a client. Not for a contract? Just for fun." Fun. What a strange word. That night, I went home and opened an old sketchpad I hadn't touched in years. Back when I first started coding, I'd draw layouts and scribble down wild ideas for apps that didn't make sense to anyone but me. I flipped through pages of half-formed ideas, bad logos, and margin notes like, "Would anyone even use this?" And one stuck out. A platform idea I'd had for mentorship. Real-time anonymous peer coaching for people in high-pressure jobs, filtered by industry role and problem. I'd shelved it years ago, told myself it was too niche. But now it felt like maybe I needed it more than anyone. Over the next few weeks, I quietly started working on it again. Nights, weekends, a little every day. No pressure, no deadlines, just something mine. Kayla helped test it, gave feedback, roasted my UI, encouraged me. I didn't tell anyone else. Not my parents, not Connor, definitely not Avery. And with every passing day, I felt a little lighter, a little more me. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I was looking for peace. Real peace. And for the first time in a long time, I started to believe I might actually find it. But of course, peace never lasts long when your family is determined to drag you back in. And what happened next? Well, Let's just say the moment I started to rebuild, they found a new way to knock it all down. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of silence from my family. No calls, no messages, no passive-aggressive group chats, not even a funny meme from my mom. And trust me, she's the type to send minions saying wine o'clock at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. I wasn't sure if they were freezing me out or just waiting for me to apologize. Either way, I didn't chase them. I was done chasing. I'd spent a decade being the one who checked in, the one who reached out, the one who smoothed things over. This time, they'd have to come to me. And for a while, I thought maybe they wouldn't. Until the text came. It was a Wednesday. I'd just finished a late meeting with a new developer I'd hired for the mentorship app, which, by the way, was finally starting to look like something real. We'd settled on a name, PulseBridge, and even had a working beta that Kayla had stress-tested to the brink of collapse. I was running on 3 hours of sleep and a stomach full of vending machine pretzels when I saw it. "Mom, can you come by Sunday? We're doing a family brunch. Would love to see you. We miss you." I stared at the message for a long time. Not, "I'm sorry," not "let's talk." Just a polite summons, like I was a court jester expected to return to duty. Still, I was curious. Part of me wanted to say no. The other part, the strategic part, wanted to see what this was really about. So I texted back. "Me? Sure, I'll bring muffins." Sunday came. It was a warm spring day, one of those rare mornings where the air feels like a clean slate. I wore jeans, a t-shirt, and brought a box of blueberry muffins from the bakery near my office. When I got there, I noticed immediately Connor's car wasn't in the driveway. Neither was Avery's. Inside, my mom was setting the table with forced cheer. My dad stood at the coffee machine, avoiding eye contact like it owed him money. "Where's Connor?" I asked. "He and Avery are taking a break," my mom said quickly. "They're giving each other space." I blinked. "Since when?" She waved a hand. "It's not important." Oh, there it was. The real reason they'd invited me. The atmosphere had that nervous feeling to it. The kind where people pretend everything's fine while their entire house is sinking. I played dumb, sat down, accepted a cup of coffee, and waited. It didn't take long. My dad cleared his throat halfway through a conversation about someone's neighbor's dog, then said, "So your brother's had a rough couple of weeks?" I nodded slowly. "I heard. He's in a bit of a bind." There it was, the ask. "What kind of bind?" I said, taking a bite of a muffin. "Well, he might be losing his job," my mom said gently. "And with the breakup and everything, he's really been struggling." And my dad added, "He mentioned that you were working on some new projects, big ones. Sounds like things are going well for you." I tilted my head. "Is this the part where you ask if I'm hiring?" They both looked at each other. My mom smiled in that tight, hopeful way. "We just thought it would mean a lot if you could give him a chance." I set my coffee down. "What kind of chance?" "You know, my dad said maybe bring him on. Let him assist. Something to get him back on his feet." So there it was. After everything, the years of neglect, the constant favoritism, the party, the humiliation, they wanted me to rescue him. Again. I leaned back. What happened at Cornerstone? They hesitated. I already knew. Word had gotten back to me through the client network. After Avery's mess and her spectacular exit, she resigned before HR could finalize the termination. Connor's department came under scrutiny. His role had been restructured, which in corporate terms means we realized you contribute nothing and don't want to deal with you anymore. He'd burned that bridge, and now he was swimming toward mine. My mom softened her voice. "He's trying, Miles. He just needs someone to believe in him." I let the silence hang there for a second. Then I nodded. "Okay," I said. Her face lit up. "Really?" "Sure. Tell him to send me a resume." That night, I got the email. His resume was a joke. 2 pages of inflated buzzwords and fake achievements, including a strategic lead role on a project I personally built from scratch while he was on vacation in Miami. But I didn't delete it. No. Instead, I started planning. Because I realized something in that moment. I had more power than they ever gave me credit for. And if I played this right, I could finally teach them what it feels like to be on the other end of the imbalance. But not by screaming, not by lashing out, by doing what I do best, being underestimated. The next step was quiet. I reached out to Kayla, told her I had a weird favor to ask. I needed her to act as a recruiter. Fake name, fake firm, and call Connor about a position at a fast-scaling tech startup looking for a hungry SDR with grit. The kind of job that sounded flashy and fun, but was ultimately high pressure and all smoke. Kayla laughed. "So you're giving him the rope? I'm just showing him the edge," I said. Whether he trips or jumps is up to him. Meanwhile, I sent him a polite rejection from MJT Systems. Said we weren't hiring at the moment but wished him the best. Within a week, Kayla under the name Rachel reported back. Connor had jumped at the bait. He'd scheduled an interview. Even bragged about how he grew up around tech and had inside connections in the industry. It was going exactly as expected. The trap wasn't the job. The trap was what would come after. While that played out, I kept working on Pulse Bridge. We pushed the beta out to a few nonprofit orgs who agreed to try it internally. Feedback was incredible. Real people were using the platform to navigate burnout, workplace stress, and leadership gaps. For the first time in a while, I was building something that mattered, not just for profit, but for people. It felt good, clean, free. And then the final piece fell into place. One of our major contracts at MJT, a citywide education initiative, had recently been passed off to a new partner firm for implementation. That firm, a boutique consulting agency, co-owned by someone who used to work with Cornerstone. Guess who they just hired as a junior contractor, Avery. Small world, right? I ran into her at a conference mixer. She didn't see me at first. She was talking animatedly about her new start and how toxic environments make you stronger. I stood nearby sipping my drink until she turned and locked eyes with me. Her face froze. I gave a small nod. No smile, just enough to remind her I see you. I always see you. And then I walked away. Because the real setup wasn't about humiliating her. It was about showing her that no matter where she went, she'd always be walking through doors I built. Now everything was in place. Connor had bitten. Avery had stumbled. My parents had no idea the game was even happening. All that was left was the final move. And trust me, it was coming. The week it all came together, I barely had to lift a finger. Connor had been hyping himself up in the family group chat for days. Not to me, of course, just to mom and dad. Big tech opportunity, he kept calling it. Startup energy, but with real capital. He dropped buzzwords he didn't understand and humble bragged about his third-round interview with a fake recruiter. My mom responded with prayer hands emojis and told him she always knew he'd find his lane. I didn't say a word. It was surreal, honestly. Watching it unfold like a slow-motion car crash where you already know the outcome. Because here's the thing. I wasn't setting him up to fail. I wasn't faking a job offer or stringing him along for the punchline. The job did exist technically. Kayla's recruiting firm had been a test branch for Pulse Bridge, designed specifically to simulate high-pressure work environments and track how applicants responded under stress. It was opt-in, of course, part of a controlled research pilot we were running with transparency clauses buried in the terms. But let's be real, Connor never read those. He just clicked agree and started performing. His role was a 10-day contract, trial basis, commission only. The kind of position real grinders use to prove themselves, not trust fund babies trying to cosplay as entrepreneurs. By day 3, he was already complaining. They're on me like every hour, he texted my dad. Want updates like I'm some robot. Not cool. Whole place is chaotic, man. They need structure. Oh, the irony. By day 6, Kayla called me. He tried to sell the software to a competitor, she said, stifling laughter. Like actual cold outreach to another firm. Said he had connections and thought it had impressed us. And we flagged it, put it in the report, let him twist. I didn't even have to ask what came next. On day 10, he was formally let go via a performance email, respectful, honest, and signed by Rachel with a generic HR footer. He was livid. My mom called that night. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice sounded tight, accusatory. I don't know what's going on with that company Connor worked for, but he said it was the most toxic place he's ever been. People yelling at him, confusing tasks. They just dropped him without warning. Can you believe that? Oh, I could believe it, but I wasn't done yet. Not until I told them the truth and made sure it stuck. The opportunity came that weekend during what was supposed to be a family check-in brunch. My mom insisted it would clear the air and bring everyone back together. I didn't trust it, but I said yes. I'd been patient long enough. We met at a little diner they liked, white tablecloths, fake flowers in mason jars, a chalkboard menu written in pastel. I showed up 5 minutes early. They showed up 20 minutes late. Connor strutted in wearing sunglasses indoors like he was trying to disguise failure as fashion. My dad gave me a stiff handshake. My mom hugged me a second too long like guilt was perfume she could rub off on me. So my mom said, once we were all seated, I know it's been tense, but we're still family, and that means something. I sipped my coffee. Connor leaned back in his chair. Look, man, I don't know what's going on with you lately, but I get it. You're successful or whatever. Congrats. But don't act like you're better than us. I raised an eyebrow. Is that what you think I've been doing? He shrugged. I'm just saying it's not cool to look down on people. You embarrassed Avery, then acted like I was some loser for needing help, like you've never had a rough patch. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a small black folder, set it on the table, slid it toward him. "What's this?" he asked. "Your rough patch. Documented. The past 10 days of your big tech opportunity, every interaction, every skipped task, every failed assignment complete with timestamps." He flipped it open, confused, then slowly paled. My mom leaned over. "Wait, how did you get this?" "I didn't get it," I said. "I commissioned it." Silence. "What?" Connor asked, voice thin. "I own the pilot program you just failed out of," I said calmly. "Pulse Bridge. It's mine. You didn't get recruited, you got studied." My dad stiffened. What I gave you the chance you asked for," I said, turning to my mom. "I reviewed your resume. I watched your interviews. I gave you a real opportunity to show who you are when nobody's holding your hand, and you blew it." Connor looked like he'd been slapped. "You set me up." "No," I said. "You set yourself up. I just finally stopped padding your fall." He shoved the folder away, eyes blazing. "This is insane. You think this makes you the good guy?" "No," I said. "I think it makes me free." My mom blinked rapidly, trying to hold on to the narrative. "Miles, this is cruel. He was trying." "No, Mom, I was trying. For years. While you ignored me. While you praised his every stumble as if it were a leap. While you watched me carry this family and still asked why I wasn't smiling more." I stood up, voice steady. "I'm done being the background character in a story I wrote. They didn't follow me out, didn't call after me, just sat there stunned. And I didn't look back. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've cut contact. Not out of spite, out of necessity. The space has been clean, quiet healing. Pulse Bridge officially launched last month and landed its first major institutional partnership. Kayla is now my co-founder. We have 5 full-time staff, and the feedback we're getting from users, it's better than I ever dreamed. Connor moved back in with my parents. He's trying to get into crypto now. I wish him luck. As for Avery, she got let go from the consulting firm. Turns out, coasting on charm only gets you so far when people actually read your emails. Sometimes I think about reaching out just to say see, but then I remember the real lesson. I never needed them to see me. I just needed to stop shrinking for them. And the day I did that was the day everything changed. Because some bridges aren't burned out of anger. They're torched to light the road forward.